paulharkin.com.
But she said, my mom said just now, she's like, I know you're not really a Dodgers fan, but I have a soft spot for the Dodgers. And I'm like, I get that, Mom.
Look,
the first baseball game I ever went to was a Dodgers
We're
game.
live, and I want to keep it that way. Can we not?
Not talk about the Dodgers? No.
Yeah, can we just not talk about baseball or Dodgers?
No, we're going to talk about baseball. Actually, you know what? Let's start the show, and then we'll talk about baseball later.
Okay.
I mean, I have a feeling in the entire show, people are going to tell us the score.
Oh, of course. Paul Tobias is going to be like, hey, the Yankees are losing. Hey, the Yankees are still losing. Hey, the Yankees are continuing to lose. Way to go, Mike.
Say,
oh, boy.
And then he's going to say, Gabe, remember 2016? Oh.
There it
Hey,
is.
everybody.
What?
We're live. We're live. We do the show, every 2 weeks now? Mike, we've been pretty
every
regular.
2 weeks.
Sometimes.
We've been pretty regular, right, Gabe?
I feel like we have been pretty.
We have been as regular as Metamucil.
Oh.
Oh.
On that note, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
thought it. You said it.
Spooky Shred playlist. That's what we're making tonight with our favorite member of Testament. Well, you're my favorite member of Testament because you're the only guy in Testament that I know. However, Testament is. Let me say something real quick. I'm gonna admit something on camera and while we're live. Alex, I'm gonna tell you this to your face. You are one of my top 5 guitar heroes of all time. And the time I met you here at El Cajon at Taylor headquarters, I was losing my mind low key the whole time. So having you on this podcast live with us right now, right before Halloween, means the world to me. So thank you very much. This is going to be a great show. Ladies and gentlemen.
Did it well.
I mean, it's Alex Skolnick. Do you guys know who it? Okay, we'll get into that. Let me talk to you real quick. Tonight on Primetime, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Skolnick. You see him right up there in the corner. Everybody say hello. All right, lead guitarist and songwriter for one of the greatest metal bands in existence, a band called Testament. I'm a huge fan. Mike's a huge fan. Gabe, you might not be a huge fan yet, but you'll be at the end of the night. As well as the Alex Skolnick Trio, metal supergroup Metal Allegiance. He's doing guest spots with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Most recently in a jazz fusion quartet called Pact, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. He's about to leave for a European tour with Testament, playing alongside thrash metal heavyweights Anthrax, New York. I love Anthrax. Scott Ian, good dude right there. And Creator. He also just finished scoring a horror movie.
Just started.
You're starting to. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually right in the middle of it. Yeah.
In the middle of it. Traction Park Massacre, if I got that right.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is due out in 2025. Alex Skolnick, welcome to Taylor Primetime.
Thank you guys
so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I want to get the feed. I want to get everybody who's watching right now familiar with you as a guitar player real quick. So I got a couple of clips that I want to play.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is something that Gabe filmed in New York. It wasn't at Rudy's, but where was it at, Mike?
This was at the Music Den in Randolph, New Jersey.
All right. And just
New York adjacent.
Yes.
New York adjacent. Just check this out. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. You guys will enjoy yourselves, I promise.
So
Mike, did you put in contacts?
This is what Alex's playing does to me.
here's what's rad.
It's
there's
unbelievable.
there's
I'm
50
stunned.
things that are rad right now, but while Jay's right, I'm not necessarily like a huge, like, metal is not necessarily my go-to thing to listen to all the time. I enjoy it for sure, but like, listen to the depth and the width of what Mike or what Alex is able to do as a player. You know, he's a ripping metal player, but then the way he handles an acoustic guitar and plays something like that is super nuanced. Your rhythm is incredible. I was saying there counting the whole time. I was like, he's like a metronome. You're spot on. And now look at the comments. We have guys. Another one of my favorite guitar players, Trey Hensley, is
Trey Hensley. I saw him there. Yeah,
yeah. Like,
I'm beyond honored.
But the nuance.
I know who that is.
The nuance and the depth. And
that's one of the real guys.
You're one of the
he
real
does
guys.
that.
You're one of the real guys too.
I can't. Yeah, as far as like that style, that flavor of guitar playing. Just now, I dabble in it, but that's Trey's the real deal. But I managed to work it into my stew of different styles.
There's a great cross section of what you do that's so rad, and I love the way you handle an acoustic guitar like an acoustic guitar. Because there's so many electric players who are incredible electric players, but you hand them anything that doesn't have 9s or 10s on it, and they melt and like cannot handle, a standard acoustic lights or whatever. And
I'm sure a lot of us feel the same way when we watch ourselves. We think, oh my God, I'm so much better now if I did that today.
It's so rad.
It's actually, I remember that appearance. Yeah, that was very. That was a really fun appearance, and it really got me working on a lot more acoustic stuff. So I think I planted a seed, because what you guys did, you had us play these guitars at that store, all exceptionally fine instruments, and just play a minute or two unaccompanied, which is not that easy to do.
No, it's like it's oddly one of the hardest things to do. Where it's like, Alex, sit on that stool. We're going to give you a guitar. Now play for 90 seconds or 2 minutes.
Just see what happens.
Yeah. So since then, I have a lot more acoustic parts, and I think an all acoustic album, it has to happen at some point. I mean, I did do one. It was called Planetary Coalition, and it was very internationally flavored. But it was always with other musicians. I never recorded unaccompanied before, but that day, me and my friend Gil Paris, we
my goodness,
traded off doing these little snippets like that, and it really planted a seed. So thank you guys for having me over and doing that.
So rad.
I pulled a video off the internet, so it's a little 30-second clip, but I want to play another thing, and then we're going to get into the show as normal.
Okay.
I'm going to play a normal. This is what it would look like when you go see Alex in Testament. So for the next 30 seconds, I hope you are prepared. I hope you're holding on to get your face completely melted. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Skolnick in Testament. Dude, come on.
I don't do anything that well.
I
can't breathe that well. So.
Yeah, like I don't do anything that well. I don't get out of bed that well. I don't eat. Like, there's nothing I do that I'm that good at all.
Most of us don't eat that well. So
that is within the last 72 or 96 hours, I believe.
Yeah,
that's a very recent clip.
There's a comment here. There's a gentleman who was just at your show and
oh, cool.
has a bunch of clips. So maybe everybody go check those out after the show.
Yeah, the Palladium show got a lot of clips. I mean, there's clips throughout this whole tour, which it began in Nevada. but ended up at San Francisco 2 nights ago. And the clips have been really good. Testament to our front of house band, no pun intended. But also, I've explained to people that over the years, the sound quality for this type of music has gotten so much better.
Oh my goodness!
It used to be a wall of noise. I remember, in the early days, one of us would get unplugged or something would go wrong. Nobody would notice because it was just like, you could barely tell what was going on. And now, the PA systems are designed better. The amplification is better. We have in-ears so we can hear ourselves. And it's nice to see these clips where, you can actually hear what's going on.
Even from a phone, like that mix is awfully good.
Yeah.
High five the front of house engineer.
And that was a screen recording.
Yeah.
So I'm using computer mic to screen record.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. But
can I be a nerd and ask what you're playing through and everything? What your rig is like?
Yeah. Well, I'm a relatively recent convert to amp modelers and multi-effects units.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wrote an article about this. I have a Substack page, and the article, it got quoted quite a bit, but I basically, said that, this is what's happening now. And you have to accept it. Amplifiers are great and all, but they're much higher maintenance, and you tend to notice a difference more in the studio. And the modelers that I use, for a while, it was the Kemper, with the Profiler, which I still have, and I still use sometimes for the studio. But for live shows lately, it has been the Quad Cortex by Neural DSP, and I know a lot of folks have jumped onto that. You see them often on tour. But I find, there's so much variety there, and it's pretty easy to get an individual sound. And I'd mentioned the front of house sound person. The sound people are very happy because we have the same sound every time, and with amps, a fuse can change everything. A tube, wearing out slightly can change things. And I'm totally sold. And even bands with much, much higher budgets than us, like U2 and Metallica, are going in the same direction.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Metallica, so for those of you who are in the feed, listening and watching, Testament is my Metallica. So I just want you guys to relate to how big of an opportunity this is. And Mike, thanks for hooking this up. This is fantastic.
Alex said yes. All I did was
Alex
ask.
said yes. All you got to do is ask. And sometimes they say yes. It's fantastic. So let's do the show as
well. Look at ours. How can I say no?
And then we have an interview portion. We're going to dive into when Alex decided to leave Testament for a little while. So part of his career that's actually really interesting that I hope you stick around for and listen to. All right, so you guys know the deal. If you've been here before, keep the feed clean. We don't want Gabe to have to put you in timeout. That would be a bummer. We're going to play a little. Hey, Gabe, we haven't done this in a while, so we're going to do it real quick. We're going to do a little round robin of what have you been listening to lately.
Yes.
We'll start with Alex.
I love it.
Alex, what records have you been listening to lately?
Oh, boy, I have to start this.
You want us to come around? We'll go to.
Hey, come around. This is like sitting at a table, and we're at a diner. The menu is enormous. I can't make up my mind. Somebody else needs to order first.
Can I have the pizza burger then, medium with gravy for the fries? Pizza burger deluxe, please. Thank you.
Gabe, you go first. What have you been listening to?
Well, I mean, as you know, I have kids, so most of my car listening is dictated by them. Most of my home listening is dictated by whatever I'm working on for Jay. So when I've been driving for work and stuff lately, I've been trying to delve into anything that people send me. So if you have recommendations, drop them in the comments. I'll pull them up on Apple Music and listen to them as I drive to a shoot tomorrow. But mostly stuff the kids want to listen to. Lots of Taylor Swift. Lots of. I made a special trip to the record store because if you're a parent, you know that Bluey's a thing, and a new Bluey record came out, so we had to go get that.
That's awesome.
And we bought some other vinyl while there. We just bought some new. I just ordered some new Josh Ritter on vinyl that just came out, so I haven't heard it yet. So a lot of that stuff.
Mike, your turn.
I already placed my order. I'm still waiting for it. Actually, I've been listening to a couple of different things. Obviously, I've been listening to a bunch of Testament this past week because, it never hurts to. But I've been really focused on Marvelous 3, the band Marvelous 3, Butch Walker's band, and from years ago. And they're actually, I think this past weekend, they actually reunited and played a bunch of shows down in their hometown of Atlanta. But yeah, they were a great, kind of power poppy band in the late 90s as well. And then also I'm listening to, and I don't know why, I just have been, but just Donovan. Been listening to a lot of Donovan. Donovan's greatest hits has been on loop. So everything from, Mellow Yellow and, Sunshine Superman and Hurdy Gurdy Man and all that has just been playing round and round. So.
Oh, I meant to mention MJ Lenderman I discovered earlier this week and have been listening to a bunch. And another one of those random artists. I walked into the record store, they were playing it. It was great, and I bought it.
I love this.
Manning Fireworks is the album, and it's awesome.
Jay, what are you listening to?
Me?
Well,
unless Alex knows what he's listening to now.
Well, I have a couple of really probably surprising ones.
Okay,
all right.
I love it.
Believe it or not, the daughter of some of the biggest tabloid celebrities, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Yes. Willow Smith. She's the real deal.
She's playing Powers Electric. She's playing. Exactly. Powers Electric.
Yeah, I think I might have sent him an Instagram clip of her with that guitar, and she's unstoppable. My friend Mohini Day, who's the scariest bass player around, did a tour with her recently, and I thought, this would be another example of some, very proficient, advanced musician, kind of toning it down for a smooth pop audience. But it's not like that at all. It's very exciting music. The songs are unpredictable. The timing of it is legit. There you go. Somebody who knows.
The Willow record is so good. It's almost too good. It's almost scary how good it is. It's just brilliant. Love it.
Yeah. So and I like a lot of music that isn't that well known.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of European jazz piano groups, believe it or not.
Okay.
And I find them especially relaxing on the road. So my favorite one is the Esbjørn Svensson trio. Unfortunately, he's not around anymore, but I still never get tired of the music. And they call themselves EST for short. And they were semi-well-known in the States, but really big in Europe. They actually were on the pop charts for a bit. Wow. And they inspired a bunch of other groups. So one of them, it's a pianist named Julia Holzman. And they're not, kind of trying to do what's been done before.
Yeah.
They have the chops. They've obviously done their homework. They know the vocabulary of, all the jazz standards and everything like that. But they're clearly, more futuristic sounding. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then I'm kind of rediscovering a lot of earlier players. Freddie King. I somehow
Wow.
crossed paths with as a listener at one time. Getting your blues together. About the Three Kings. But I don't know, for some reason, I don't know if he popped up on a playlist or whatever, but I sort of rediscovered him, and it was incredibly inspiring. And Grant Green.
Oh, Grant Green.
Yeah.
Oh,
and he's actually turned out to be great warm-up music, too. I warm up to his stuff before I go out and play music like in that last clip. And it may be surprising, but I find if I can do that, if I can be comfortable playing along with somebody I'm not comparing myself to him, but if I can.
No, but what a challenge.
Yeah, if I can play along and you can hear it and it doesn't sound embarrassing, then I know my chops and listening skills are together enough to go out and play with the band and playing songs I'm very familiar with.
I love that. It's like we should do that as a segment. What would you warm up to at some point?
Well, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah, you should. I have a whole playlist of stuff that I warm up to as well.
Oh, that's an interesting. Maybe
That'd be a good.
Includes John Schofield, Alan Holdsworth, Chick Corea.
Oh,
that'd be a good Spotify playlist.
John Coltrane,
Alex's
Aquarium Rescue Unit.
I like Aquarium Rescue Unit. Yeah.
And
I love Schofield's awesome.
And also he encompasses so many styles too. Schofield with Joe Henderson is awesome. I'll play along with that, but also Schofield with Medeski, Martin, and Wood, which is a whole other thing.
That's kind of your walk-up song question, right? If you're not it's just like a baseball thing. What would your walk-up song be? What would you warm up to? I think we need to add that segment when we have artists on. That's fantastic.
I think we just did.
We just did. All right. Well,
happy to inspire it. So.
Yes,
I've been listening to the new Balance and Composure record. It's called "With You in Spirit." I have another podcast that's not a Taylor podcast, and we have a guest that we're interviewing who. He's the main writer and singer in a band called Coldplay. So I've been listening to the new Coldplay record, and it's brilliant. I love it a lot. Not everybody in the world gets behind Coldplay, but I do. I think they're fantastic.
I get behind them sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Clocks is essential in my opinion.
Clocks is essential. Yeah. The new record kind of falls back into that world. It's brilliant.
Okay, good. I've been kind of waiting for, but it's like that with so many bands,
Yeah.
When
they're good, they're really good.
I'm going to go back to Master of Puppets.
I'm
sure it's the same way. I'm not as familiar with the Coldplay world, but I would imagine it's when are they going to go back to Clocks?
Dude, Clocks was remarkable. The new record, it's called Moon Music. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story from start to finish. It's great.
Awesome.
There's a weird, I'll just say it, and we'll leave it at this. We won't take it any further, but there's a weird political climate as we're going into an election. So I listen to a lot of hip hop.
No.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of hip hop, and I've been sharing Boogie Down Productions edutainment for a lot of people right now. It was a game-changing hip hop record for me. I learned a lot from it when I was younger. I think it came out in like 88 or 89. Mm-hmm. So I've just been listening to old hip hop for a while. All right, let's move on.
What I really want now is like a podcast that's like Alex and other metal artists talking about Coldplay.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Actually, that probably would do better.
I know the artists we could get.
No,
it would not be hard to find.
Here's a question. Mike, this one's just specifically for Mike. Mike, what are your top? I know I'm gonna say 2, not 3. I'm gonna do even number. What are your top 2 Testament albums?
Practice What You Preach and Souls of Black.
Cool. Approved.
So good records.
I mean, that was like those are my formative years of metal.
Even though I have full respect for the ones I'm not on, but thank you for picking ones I'm on.
Now, look, I mean, Testament has a long and storied history of playing amazing thrash metal music from your inception till now. And yeah, even when you weren't there, I mean, the albums were good. It just wasn't you.
Yeah. But you know, new flavors came during that time, and
yeah,
I think the version of Testament now, you know, has some of those flavors and the original flavors. And
yep,
so it's
exactly.
now, it's going places that it never did.
So those are my two for sure.
That's hilarious
100%.
because those are exactly mine. I like The Gathering a lot too. I thought that record was, it's phenomenal.
Great record.
The New Order was probably the first record I kind of learned. Like I figured it out, and it looked, that art was so, in a weird way, similar to Ride the Lightning, that I accidentally bought Testament record because
is that what happened?
that's what happened, and I got it, and I was like, "This is the greatest band ever made," and that's kind of how it went
funny.
for there. So there you go. But
I never thought about that, but I could see
it is
now,
similar.
especially
It's
if
not a lightning bolt, but it was colors, and I don't know what I was doing anyway.
Well, it's a little bit like, you know, the songs. You know, somebody who's not that familiar might hear a song from both those records and think it sounds very similar, whereas, you know, being in it, we hear it as so different, and we saw the cover was so different. Wait, no, they have an electric chair.
Yeah,
you know, we have this weird face in the clouds, but
but it was the blues. It was kind of like the blues of the. Anyway, I fell in love with Testament at that point, and it was like, all right, game on. Let's do this.
Game on.
All right, let's play a quick game of this or that with Alex. Alex, this is easy. I'm going to give you two subjects or questions or items, and you choose one or the other. It's very simple. Game of this or that. First is Miles Davis or John Coltrane.
Oh, it's tough. Do I? Can I elaborate at all?
Ouch.
No, you just got to pick one. I know it's so hard, but what do you think?
Miles Davis.
Okay. Single coil or humbucker?
What is it? Single coil or humbucker?
Yeah.
Humbucker.
Yeah. Okay. Rush or Dream Theater?
Rush. Sorry, guys.
So now we're gonna. This is a part 2. Ready? I love this one. This was Mike's idea, and I back it. Lifeson or Petrucci?
Tough call, but just Lifeson was there first, so I'm gonna go with Lifeson.
All right. So I believe research says you're from the Bay Area, right? But you live in New York.
That's correct.
Okay, so Chinese food is great in both places, but which Chinese food is better? Chinatown, New York, Chinatown, San Francisco?
It's a tough call, and they're both great. I'm going to say Chinatown, New York.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right.
I'm closer to San Francisco, so I might say San Francisco just a little bit.
Yeah, but you know, it's entirely possible for me to find a meal in San Francisco, I'm sure, and detract my answer. It's like, you know.
Announcements. Here's our announcements part of the segment. We don't have any announcements because we have Alex on the show, so we're going to dive in and do a little bit of Q&A and get to know Alex as a guitar player just a little bit better. We are super stoked to have him on this show. We absolutely are thrilled that you guys are hanging out with us. I see Bandrew over there somewhere. Daria, Kevin, how you guys doing? Thank you, Tex. Tex will keep us up to date on the score. It doesn't look like Paul Tobias is going to throw that much shade towards you, Mike, today, but
right now he can't.
No, he can't.
At the score currently, he cannot. So
what is the score currently, Mike?
It was 5-2. Last I saw, the Yankees are winning because of a grand slam by Anthony Volpe. So,
of all people,
he's been mightily struggling. So they're going to the top of the 5th.
All right, there we go. This is fantastic.
Oh, that's exciting.
All right, I got a question for you, Alex. You've been successfully blended. You have successfully blended metal and jazz in your career. A rare crossover for some people would think, right? What sparked your interest in jazz, and how did you approach integrating jazz into your metal roots?
Yeah, I've told the story a bunch of times. I'm trying to figure out a way to tell it quicker, like an elevator pitch. I have not figured it out yet. But if I have to condense it, I would say, I heard the one of the electric bands of Miles Davis in the late '80s, and it just flipped me out. And I hadn't been excited about virtuosic playing since the early '80s. When I was still in high school, and even junior high. Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, Yngwie. But at a certain point, I just, I stopped getting that excited. And then I heard Miles in this band. I believe it was John Scofield on guitar, but at different times he had Robin Ford, Mike Stern. So that period of Miles Davis, there was always screaming guitar, and it was an introduction to jazz vocabulary. I just loved the licks these guys were playing, and it just sounded nothing like the patterns that I was so used to so far. And it also was very diverse music. It would be very funky in one song. There would be a blues. They'd do a slow blues. They would do a Brazilian tune. They would do reggae. It just seemed like it was so unlimited, and that kind of sparked it, I would say. And then I started inquiring and studying with some local musicians that were in the Bay Area, and they informed me, every one of these musicians knows how to play jazz music. They know jazz standards. They know how to play the traditional stuff, the stuff that came before. So you're not going to get a handle on this unless you learn jazz. So it's like, all right, I'll listen to these guys like Wes Montgomery and Jim Hall and Pat Martino. That I'm sure I was told at one time, you should listen to these people, but it hadn't clicked when I was in my Van Halen, Randy Rhoads phase. But for some reason, at this point, I'd made a couple records with Testament, and I needed a new spark, and that was my spark. And also, I found it was just a nice break. It was nice to play and just be it was really like a vacation from full volume screen, distortion. I really enjoyed like clean jazz chords and just everything that came with it. So it just became a part of my thing. And then the more time went on, the more I heard great concerts. Too many people to name. I just found some old ticket stubs from this period, and it's like the Herbie Hancock trio.
Oh my goodness.
Al Di Meola with
so
Ellie Lagrange and Larry Coryell, Joe Pass, Michael Brecker, McCoy Tyner, Joe Zawinul, like just all this music that would just knock me out. And I just got more and more into it. And pretty much from the mid 90s till the mid 2000s, that was my main focus.
So when you started, you were in Testament when the band started, correct?
Well, nope. The band was already gigging.
Okay.
I would hear about them. So they played, I think, the second show that Megadeth ever did in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yep.
They were one of the local support acts. They played the third or fourth Slayer show. By that time, Slayer already had at least one record out, but they were a support act for these bands. And Suicidal Tendencies, all totally. The bands that we still talk about today. And I would hear about them, and I would hear, I kept missing them because, it was often on a school night. I was in the 11th grade, and I had professor parents that were, very strict about school and everything. So I could only go to gigs on the weekends. But, friends of mine that were, in more permissive environments would, they'd go to these shows. They'd tell me about it. But you got to hear this band, And then one day I heard that they needed a guitarist. And at that point, I had tried to put bands together. There weren't as many proficient musicians in high school that played guitar, bass, and drums as there are today. I mean, today there's so many young bands.
There's so many musicians, yeah.
At this time, it was pretty rare to get that much of a head start on the instrument. So I quickly realized, okay, I need to play with adults for one thing. And I should probably find a band that is already gigging. And almost like clockwork, I heard that this band that I kept hearing about through the grapevine needed a guitar player. So that was how it all happened. And I was, I was 16 years old. And by the time I was 18, we were recording our first album, The Legacy.
Dude. Mike.
So, I mean, I know what I was. I know where I was when I was 15, 16 years old in my guitar playing journey. It's kind of the same place I'm at in my 51 year. It's very, very similar. And nowhere near the proficiency level that you were at or are at, or I'll just never scratch the surface. But with that said, I'm sure it could be frustrating when you're that dedicated to your craft. I'm sure you're practicing a heck of a ton at that time, because you weren't allowed to go to concerts. So what'd you do? You probably did your homework and then you practiced a lot, probably, right? Mm-hmm. So, but how frustrating was it at that point to not find people, your peers, that were up to your level and have to reach out like that? But maybe those people were looking at you like, hey, kid, go away. You're too young for this. Like, was there a lot of that happening between the frustration of not having familiars and people just kind of pushing you off because you were a kid?
That's an interesting question. I think there definitely was some of that. I have an older brother who doesn't play much anymore, but at that time he played a bit of bass and played in some local bands, and I got to know these local bands. But I had such a reputation as the little brother. Yeah, I was 7 years younger, and I was used to not being taken seriously and underestimated. So I think maybe it gave me something to prove too. And it brings up another coincidence, which is that I studied with some of the guys my brother played with. He played with a couple really good guitar players that were like the best on the block. And I heard they had a teacher that was this very serious musician. It was like studying with a classical piano teacher with all the strictness and all the seriousness, but he played electric guitar. And all I knew about him, his name's Joe, and it was some Italian last name. and there were, people were warning me, maybe you're not going to want to go to this guy. He only teaches very serious players. And I'm like, I'm a serious player. I'm going to prove it. And obviously that was Joe Satriani. And he had a waiting list at that time, but I finally found my way in and studied with him for about a year and a half. And that was really helpful. That was, I didn't, other than my brother, I didn't have like a musical family. It was really discouraged in our household. But I think the combination of sort of finding Joe, who at that time was like just a local legend, it would be a couple years before the rest of the world found out about him. And the experience of this opening happening in this band, and suddenly, there's, they have shows on the calendar, the same places I would go with my knucklehead friends, and watch out these new bands, like Slayer and Megadeth. Suddenly they're playing those same stages. So, okay, so the combination of that made me practice a lot harder. So
were you allowed to play during the week? We
Well, that was
have
an
to
issue.
do the gigs during the week.
That was a big issue. There was definitely, they they talk. They had to have a talk with my parents. They would try to book weekend shows when possible, but it's not always possible. Still the same today. You try to book on a weekend, but weekends are popular, so you don't always get the weekend.
Indeed.
But the time went by really fast, and the next thing you know, we have this deal with the company Megaforce that had been Metallica's original label pre-Elektra. Yeah. They had just signed a distribution deal with Atlantic Records, so that kind of gave us a foot in a major label, if not being directly on a major label. And it was a big step up. And then by the time the first record came out, we were booked on tours with groups like Overkill and Anthrax. Other groups that are still around, which is awesome.
It is kind of crazy that everybody from that Bay Area thrash conclave, like almost all of them are still in existence in one way or another.
The Bay Area,
better in a way. I think, a lot of us sort of got our act together later on in the band's existence, so there's been a bit of a second act,
which is good.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it super interesting how there's like pockets of music like that? Like that particular conclave, just like like the Beatles and the Stones and all those other groups, like they all came from the same area within the same like 2 years, like that existed. Like same thing. Like all these bands pop up at almost the same time. That kind of are the big influences in this genre.
Yeah. Seattle had a
Seattle has a thing.
Yeah, I just think that's so crazy, like how influential one area of the country or one area of the world can be in a particular genre like that.
It's true. It's true. And then we had the one band, Metallica, which had relocated. The drummer was from Denmark, the vocalist was from Southern California, but it wasn't really a Bay Area band, but they really found their footing in the Bay Area, and they found Cliff Burton and Kirk Hammett in the Bay Area, so they sort of became a Bay Area band by default. But almost in no time, they just took off on a whole other level and really had it together the first time around. That was not the case with a lot of the other bands.
But even so, like, and Gabe, to your point, there are a lot of pockets in the country where you have the Seattle scene and then you have the LA glam scene and all these things. And the thing about the Bay Area thrash scene is that, like I mentioned, like these bands are still around. Like the Seattle bands, for one reason or another, most of them are gone, and some for unfortunate reasons, but most of them are gone. And those that are still around may not still have some of the notoriety, Pearl Jam being a notable exception. LA hair bands, there were a slew of them, and there's only a couple that really still do anything today. Between Testament, Exodus, Death Angel, Metallica, Anthrax was New York, but they were influenced by the Bay Area, that's for sure. And you can still kind of lump them in with it because they've toured with all those bands, all that time. And, and even Megadeth, I think you can kind of throw in there because of the whole relation with Dave Mustaine and Metallica. All those bands are still performing. Like they're all still around doing something. And like Alex said, like better than ever, like, you guys went from playing, bars to, routinely playing, arenas. So it's interesting to see how that group and how dedicated the fan base is of that group. And it makes it even more interesting that I know it was a different time, but like for you to have departed Testament for, the better part, a little more than a decade.
Yeah. Right.
To chase jazz, for a while there.
I'm an oddball in that.
What brought you back to Testament after you left? And how has it made you better in Testament?
Yeah, that's a good question. it was a big shock, I think, to leave the first time around, because I was the first one to leave once we'd been a recording act and everything. But I was not the last.
Right.
So there was a lot of tension. It was a classic, behind the music type situation where, there's pressure and personality differences. And so, yeah, there were a couple guys that left right after I did too. So a few things happened. While I was gone, so I found my footing as an all-around musician. I went back to school, which made my parents happy. But doing so, I got a degree in music, but as part of the new school in New York, which is a respected university that my parents had respect for. And I did take other classes like philosophy and creative writing. So it wasn't, it was an actual education. But I was also studying with heavyweight musicians. The late guitarist Vic Juris was one of my guitar teachers. Reggie Workman, who's still around, who had played bass for John Coltrane at one time. Lesser known jazz names that became more educators like Charles Tolliver. But just being around this environment where you have some students that are going to be like the cutting edge guys. Robert Glasper was in my class. He was like one of the biggest guys right now. Mike Moreno is a great guitar player. So just being around all this greatness, I really had to be serious about it. And I think my focus then was music education. I'm one of those people. I've always enjoyed teaching and would have been just happy being a teacher. It was not some sacrifice or compromise. Like I was actually really looking forward to kind of continuing my education and maybe ending up at a college somewhere teaching, but doing my coffee shop and brewery gigs with my jazz combo. I didn't know. And I was starting to do that, and I did the first album with my trio, and it got very well received, and things were picking up there. But another thing that happened during my time away, I had done one record with the band Sabotage, and by the early 2000s, Sabotage had morphed into the Trans-Siberian Orchestra,
right?
And they were just playing theaters at that time. But they tracked me down and wanted me to play in the East Coast version of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And I thought, okay, why not? This is very different from what I'm doing, but it's only part of the year. And I ended up doing like 9 tours with that. When I started, it was theaters like, the Beacon or like the Warfield in San Francisco. That would be the West Coast group. Within a couple years, we're playing arenas. We played Madison Square Garden. We played United Center. So that blew up. And even though it's a holiday show, it's got some, screaming metal guitars.
Christmas metal.
Yeah.
Christmas metal.
Yeah, it's Christmas metal. Exactly.
I started telling people my wife loves metal, who's a high school and middle school choir teacher. She loves metal as long as it's Christmas metal.
Yeah. It's kind of brilliant because it brought a lot of people in that wouldn't have gone to a show where there's a mosh pit and crowd surfing. But it's an all-seated show with a narrator and singers from Broadway, orchestral musicians, and also just production at the highest level. Our pyro team was borrowed from Kiss. Our lighting team was borrowed from Britney Spears. It's like something I'm working with, like the cream of the crop on the production level, and also meeting people like real, top music industry people. And it was kind of surreal, but most importantly, it got me back into performing. I think the whole time I'd been getting my music degree and just studying jazz hardcore for the better part of 10 years. I was one of these people, I was all about the art, and I wasn't that into the idea of performance, a spectacle. But I realized that doing the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, I'm playing for people who bought tickets. It's a spectacle. And the creator of the show, Paul O'Neill, no relation to the baseball player, may he rest in peace. He was a great coach too. He had worked with Aerosmith in the 70s, and he was part of this management team, Lieber and Krebs. So he would push us, and he would say, you have people watching you from the nosebleed seats, and they need to be entertained too. So you have to play for everybody.
That's a good coaching job right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So after a few years of that, I was an arena musician. so about 2005 or 6, Testament got an offer to put the original lineup together and do some one-off shows in Europe. And by this time, we were getting along better. Folks were older and more mature. There was a lot of water under the bridge. And we were able to do shows. It sounded great. I think we appreciated the original sound, especially the guitar sound. The drummer of that period, Louis Clementi, still a good friend of ours, but he was never a full-time drummer. Like after he left the band, shortly after I did, he hung up his drums. So he relearned the drums in order to do some shows as the original lineup.
Wow.
But we also brought out a second drummer just to cover all the bases. And the second drummer was John Tempesta, who's an unbelievable drummer and was one of the Testament. So this was another thing that had happened. While I was away, Testament developed this crazy standard with drummers. They went from like John Tempesta to Dave Lombardo.
Oh my goodness.
To Gene Hoglan. And so when I came back, we were working with Tempesta, and then he got the gig with the Cult. So he wasn't going to be the guy. But every drummer I think our next drummer was Paul Bostaff, who's now in Slayer.
Yeah.
But every drummer we've had since is unbelievable. Yeah, it was Tempesta, Hoglan, Lombardo recently.
It was basically a murderer's row of metal drummers, of thrash drummers.
Yeah.
You could not pick a better crop of drummers.
Mike and I were talking about this earlier. It's like Testament and Sepultura have this thing where no matter who's playing drums, they're just the most remarkable drummer. You guys are. You're right, Mike. It's like a murderer's row of drummers.
Yeah, it's like a who's who of metal drummers, and especially with Gene Hoglan. I mean, that guy. If you don't know who Gene is, the man's a mountain.
Right. He plays for Death Clock. He played in one of the original versions of Death.
Yep.
With Chuck Schuldiner.
Yep. Now Dark Angel was his band.
Dark Angel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of bands.
I think you guys used to call him the Atomic Clock. Because he was just so on. Just
still
so
known
good.
as that.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different questions. One, why did I come back? Well, we got this offer to do these reunion shows, and it seemed like it would be fun. But then the offers kept coming in. So for
take them.
A couple more years, and it was fun. I'd do my instrumental music, tour with TSO. I was freelance guitarist. I did session work. I played for pop singers. I did a bunch of stuff as a guitarist, and then the offers got bigger. And finally there was an offer to tour with Heaven and Hell. That's Black Sabbath with Dio on vocals, Judas Priest, and Motorhead. They needed a fourth band. Testament got the offer on the condition that we record a new album and then it was like, okay, we had to have a discussion. All right, are we going to do this? are we going to get? Yeah, because it's real now. It's on, and everybody was kind of enjoying this kind of casual version of Testament that had come back from the ashes. But we realized, okay, now we're fully going to resurrect this thing, and yeah, that's what happened. And it's gotten better ever since. So why did I come back? That was part of the reason. But why did I stay? There's several reasons. One is the quality of the drumming. Yeah, playing the music with this quality drumming is a whole other experience. And I think I might have talked about this earlier. The quality of the sound. That's what I was all about. There were rumors that I left because I wanted to be more commercial, which was never true. I just wanted to be more musical.
Yeah.
Which is why I got into the instrumental music I did and pursued it at such a high level. And the musicians I work with are from outside of the metal world. The guys in my jazz combo, they appreciate it, but that's not what they it's not what they do. And I play with musicians like Stu Hamm or Percy Jones. These are virtuoso musicians, and I like being able to work with people that aren't from this world. But I knew if I was going to come back, I needed to be able to keep up my instrumental side, which was impossible back then because we were in this pressure cooker, just going from album to album. And also, as I mentioned, you couldn't hear yourself, and that drove me nuts. I wanted to be heard, and thankfully, the equipment manufacturers have caught up, and the PA companies they're making sound systems that don't blow up with our kind of music. The amps have the right amount of overdrive. They can handle the volume. I mean, our equipment, we would run our equipment ragged back in the day. We had Marshall amps that were designed for Foghat. Now at a certain point, they had to make amps that sound crunchy. You've got Metallica doing one of the highest selling albums of all time. And that tone, the Black Album, that tone is pure crunch. That was a turning point. Suddenly, wow, 2 and 3 channel amps with lots of overdrive. And also the amp modelers now, they get that sound really well. And we have in-ear monitors. So you can go to the middle of the stage and you hear yourself. You could go in the audience. I don't do that, but some people do that. And you can hear yourself. So between the equipment, the quality of the drumming, and just everything else I mentioned, that's one of the reasons why I'm still here today with the band and just got off of the tour.
Well, we're glad you came back.
Yes.
Mike, you got a question?
I do.
Yeah. So just kind of let's pull that into even more modern day, if you will. So you started with Testament. You had the departure where you went for more of a formal education in music, and then also the not so formal education in music that goes along with it, jamming, playing a lot, doing lots of different things, different projects, and what have you. How has all of that, like when in your return to Testament, you were songwriting back in the 80s and early 90s, then you were songwriting in the mid 2000s, writing for the same band, and now scoring a film. Mm-hmm. So how did all that inform the rest? How does your jazz background and your world music background now inform your current writing, the way that you're doing things now?
That was my exact question, Mike. Great question.
Well, I think it gives me a lot more tools to work with. I've just having the musical knowledge I have, I'm able to come up with a part. And I think most good musical parts, even by very studied musicians, they happen instinctually. They just seem to come out of thin air. But the more experience you have and the more musical knowledge you have, the easier it is to take that part and take it somewhere else and sort of get a sense what would work with that. Just one part alone is not going to make a song. A song is several parts. So I think, having the experience I have in instrumental music, it certainly helps. The project I do with Percy Jones, which is called Pact, by the way, that's all improvisational. So that really keeps you on your toes, because I'm dealing with these master improvisers. The drummer, Kenny Grahowski, plays with John Zorn. Tim Motzer is a Philadelphia improviser, and he was in a project with Kurt Rosenwinkel. And so these are like really high level players, and just being able to come up with things on the spot is just a really good skill. And I just learned to improvise, come up with things. A lot of it you won't use. You get into grooves, which you record everything, and then listen back, and maybe you'll have a few seconds that you say, aha, what's that? That sounded good. Something you might not even be aware that you played.
Have you ever gotten... Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Okay, that's the process, whatever the project is, whether it's instrumental or writing a part that'll end up with Testament or with the film score.
Now, one silly question I have to go along with that is, when you are actively writing, because sometimes we noodle and we improvise, and then sometimes we're actively writing. Have you ever like gotten into a groove where you're just like so into it that you realize while you're into it, you got so far away from what you originally were looking to do that you're like, oh, wait a minute, I have to go back. I'm a little off page here, but this is awesome.
I don't usually think about it while I'm playing, but maybe I'll stop the tape and I'll listen back to the beginning and say, oh, wow, I don't even remember this. How did I get from point A to point C?
That's fun.
I have
make me smile.
I have a question. I have a Testament question. So you're on tour, you're playing Testament songs. You've played, this catalog extremely well. You guys have, records upon records. And are there any, I know other bands go through this, so I like to ask the question. Are there any songs, Testament songs that you see on the set list that you're like, I have to play that song again?
I had this conversation with Dave Mustaine at one point about Peace Sells.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, there's no way you actually want to, with respect to the song, it's an epic song. But he admitted if it were up to him, he probably wouldn't play that song.
Right.
Maybe not every night, but he's got to play that every single set.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a huge song, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if we really have anything like that. And we always rotate the songs too.
Yeah.
So a song like Souls of Black, for example, that comes in the set, but it goes too. It's not always in the set. The only one we have that's always in the set, no matter what, is Into the Pit.
Yep.
And it's so short and so fast that you don't really get tired of it.
Yeah. That would probably be my favorite song to play if I were in the band. Because I could hang.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's just short enough.
It's a fun one. And it's often at the end.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
Yeah.
It means we're home free.
Can I ask kind of a general guitar nerd question a little bit about kind of how given you have such a well-rounded background as a musician,
mm-hmm.
You have interest in so many things, and if you had a lot of our listeners or a lot of people that are listeners of ours that I've talked to are kind of more in the middle of their guitar journey or beginner guitar players or whatever, can you maybe speak a little bit to the value of being that well-rounded and just kind of exploring, going into other genres and outside your...
It's a great question.
What might be kind of your comfort zone, your comfort space, and pushing yourself to explore other things?
Yeah. It can't hurt. It can't hurt to explore and get yourself out of this, one circle or one corner of music. I'm surprised more people don't do it. And a lot of my favorite artists have been pretty diverse. Like Jeff Beck, you could put him in so many musical situations. You could put him on stage with BB King, and he would sound great. You could put him on stage with Herbie Hancock, and he would make it work. Or Stevie Wonder, or Brad Paisley.
It's true.
And and that he just had this overall appreciation of music. Jaco Pastorius too. Michael Brecker. I don't mean to mention all musicians that are no longer with us, but these are just ones that come to mind. Michael Brecker you can hear him on like James Taylor and Billy Joel albums, but then you hear him with the Brecker brothers, and it's insane. Or with McCoy Tyner, or what. So I've always looked to musicians like that, or the musicians on TV. When I was growing up, it was the Letterman show, and when I being a teen and a young adult watching those players, like whoever would jump in with them, they would make it work, and it was awesome. Van Halen sat in with the Late Show band.
Right.
It was awesome. Phil Collins sat in with the Late Show band. It was great.
Yeah, or you see people sit in with the Saturday Night Live band. I saw G.E. Smith in some little spot the other day, and I was like, "Oh God, there's G.E. Smith. He's so good."
He's still so good.
Yeah. So I think ultimately it's what you like.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to do what's popular.
I think as guitar players, a lot of times we get in those like ruts. We play the music that we listen to, or we play the music that we like, and don't push ourselves to try other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it's easy to get too caught up in technique. And there are players with great technique that I enjoy, but I really want to play something that's worth listening to. I'd rather, it certainly takes technique to do some of the stuff that we do, especially, it's fast. It's got to be tight.
Yeah.
Especially, the screaming solos. But, I never kind of went for this all out, as much technique as you can do type thing. I always liked expression and
a little
melody,
bit
and applying those qualities. And there's just a lot of music that has those qualities that maybe it's music you wouldn't expect somebody in a band that I'm in to like. But I was never good at sort of playing a role, and they definitely try to put you in a position. There's a lot of, not so much anymore, but certainly the first few years. I just remember you're a thrash guitar player, and people had no idea what else I did. And it's nice to have all these outlets now where it's well-rounded. I'm so proud of my work and doing this metal music, but it's far from the only thing I do.
Yeah.
Has there been
really...
Jay, I just have a really quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
To that end, has there been a type of music or a genre of music that you haven't really dabbled in yet that you would really love to dip your toe in that water?
That's a great question.
Not really. Not that I could physically do. I like, I'm a big listener of classical music, and I appreciate classical guitar. I love listening to it, but I always felt like, it's just this very rigid discipline and this technique. I'm amazed by people who can do it and do it well. More recently, I've been getting into hybrid picking.
Yeah.
And borrowing occasional parts from classical and some techniques. But to do like proper classical, I just decided at one point, it's like, okay, there's people who do that, and I'm going to listen to them and just be inspired by it.
How did you first kind of find acoustic guitars, like steel string acoustic guitars? You know, coming from such a very electric background, where did you first kind of get into acoustic guitars?
I would say the first thing acoustic music that inspired me was somebody I chatted with recently on my podcast, actually, Al Dumiola.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful player.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. And he's doing more and more acoustic work lately. But the acoustic was always a big part of what he did, even though the electric really was what made him take off in the 70s. But every one of those first few records, he would have a piece that was just a knockout acoustic piece. So I remember hearing his duet with Chick Corea, Short Tales of the Black Forest. And that was, that just it still knocks me out. And I was I was talking to him about it because he's, he was revisiting it, possibly, going to bring it back in some form. And he's like, I don't know if I can do that. That's crazy. Like, obviously he's the same guy, but that there was just magic on that recording of him and Chick. And then he did a duet with Paco de Lucia, Mediterranean Sundance.
Yep, I love that piece.
And then all of those, both of those songs ended up on the live record Friday Night in San Francisco with John McLaughlin.
Yep.
And then I started getting into, for a long time, I just listened to these guys because I never thought I'd be able to understand the music. I was, just sort of knocked out by it. But those guys, that guitar trio, McLaughlin, De Lucia, Dumiola, that was really what inspired me. But then there were occasional moments on like Ozzy records, Randy Rhoads doing Deep, right? Or Diary of a Madman. Nice scary song, which is kind of on topical. And then Eddie Van Halen, he would Spanish Fly, the intro to Little Guitars. Those it was just these occasional things that he did, but they're amazing. So all of that inspired me to start working on acoustic guitar, probably around the same time I got into jazz guitar. And then I discovered guys like Borelli Lagreen and Struns and Farah, and just all these great like international sort of jazz, not really jazz, but kind of international guitar acoustic fusion, I guess you could call it.
Awesome.
So I want to talk about something real quick, and then let's go into building a spooky songs playlist, like we were going to talk about earlier. It's really interesting. So, Alex, man, many episodes ago, I want to say at this point, like 50 episodes ago, we had Stephen Edgerton from the band The Descendants on, and I kind of grew up in this punk rock world, and it was. When we brought Stefan onto the show, it was very much the same thing. You get a lot of people who aren't necessarily familiar with punk rock music, and so they listen to punk rock music and they don't get it and they don't understand. It's like these guys are shouting and the guitar parts are kind of weird and fast, and the drum parts, it sounds like these people are spazzing out, or metal, right? You listen to Testament, you listen to these parts that you guys are playing, and everything is super fast. But what I appreciate is one of the things that you said is you keep mentioning musicality, right? And so this one, I'm talking directly to my mom. She watches the show regularly, and
hi, Mom.
There's a lot of stuff where Mom would say stuff as I was growing up. Well, I don't understand the words, or I I don't get it. It's too heavy. Or I was playing some Testament earlier I'm like, dude, I'm a Testament fan, and everybody in my office, I'm like playing some songs. I'm like this and like this, and I'm like, check out the solo and all this kind of stuff. And to a lot of people, they lose it at the vocal. They block it off at the vocal because they're hearing somebody scream, or they're hearing somebody shout, or they're hearing whatever. And I always would sit there and defend it with my mom, right? I would say, Mom, but there's so much musicality in this part that you're not hearing this thing. And I understand that it's overdriven guitar, and it's not clean, and it's not tempered, and it's not slow, and it's this thing. But some people, right, we're fans. Mike listens to metal like it's going out of style. I love metal. I love heavier music. I love punk rock music. But again, I love pop. And I love big pop rock, and I love pop. I like dance music. I came from this world of like, techno and EDM and house music, living in Chicago, and big hip hop fan. And it's really interesting as your Testament is well known, man. It's such a well known band, but you took yourself out of that, and you wanted to become more musical. And now what you're doing in Testament as a fan is the most musical the band has ever been, in my opinion, and I applaud that.
Oh, thank you.
I love having you on the show so that people can get to know that metal players, punk rockers, heavy rock music, most of you are very well versed, and you have this breadth of, it's like going back to the warm-up songs, right? So now is a perfect segue to talk about some spooky music, but like some of the stuff that you're listening to, it's like, I'm also a heavy classical fan. I remember going on a couple of road trips with my dad, and he put on Dire Straits and then classical music. And
love Dire Straits too.
Right. So you learn from this, like, one of the goats of guitar, and then I'm listening to, Vivaldi and Bach and Beethoven, and learning how to this big appreciation for it. So I love that you're on the show. You can talk. It's just like this metalhead, who, by the way, has perfect spooky metal hair. Like, I wanted to talk about this.
It's a coincidence. That's not planned. That just happened.
It's pretty iconic, though.
It's so iconic, and it's so perfect that. Anyway, I love having you on the show. And
this happened in high school, and it was the equivalent of like losing hair. I thought, okay, I'm losing the color of my hair, and it's going to just all be this color. And then it stopped, and it just became like this. Now, nowadays, full disclosure, there is a bit more. I pretty much keep it the same look that I've had for a long time, but it's like a look that was chosen for me that I didn't choose. So
it's so perfect anyway, and it's perfect to segue right into a spooky playlist. So Mike and I had this idea, and we're gonna go round robin, and then we're gonna do 2-3 songs each, and then we're gonna let Alex has a few more planned, and because he's our guest, we're going to let him finish out this playlist. So, Mike, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it like last time? So we're going to make an actual Taylor Spotify playlist with some of these songs, Do you want to write it down, or?
We have this archive called YouTube where we can go back and
all right, that's what we'll
listen
do.
To
I
it
like
all.
that. I like that to keep this thing moving. Hey, you're smart. That was smart. You must be a
once in a
Yankees
while. Once in a while, I come up with a good idea.
That's why he earns his pay.
Yes.
All right.
Twice nothing is still nothing.
All right, let's do this. We're going to go round robin, one song each until we get to 2 or 3, and then we'll let Alex finish this out. Alex, tell us one song that you would like on our spooky Halloween playlist.
Well, I already mentioned that. Diary of a Madman by Ozzy Osbourne.
Yes.
Which has a wonderful acoustic intro that's largely inspired by a classical composer named Leo Brouwer from Cuba, which I found out about later. But I always thought the beginning was very beautiful and kind of spooky in an elegant way. But then as the song picks up, it really starts to get spooky, especially the end with the voices. Oh, woo, 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 woo.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like it could be in a horror film.
Indeed.
I love it. Gabe.
Thriller.
Oh, yeah, come on.
It's low hanging fruit. I'm sorry, but you have to put Thriller on a spooky
You have to put
playlist.
Thriller and
Come
just
on.
like how eerie the video is and how so many people have taken that and they reenact the video around Halloween.
Thriller has to be on there. I don't.
Yeah, Thriller. I mean, come on. Mike.
You know what should be on there is the Thriller video.
Yeah.
True.
That should really be on there if that was possible.
Actually, this is interesting timing. I was in an Uber yesterday, and my driver was a Latin percussionist, and he was playing Latin jazz music, and there was an arrangement of Thriller that that works, like Latin jazz piano. In fact, I think it's with Quincy Jones. I think it was a Quincy Jones tribute, and I forget who the musicians were, but yeah, it came on and his Latin playlist, and it was really interesting. So it's worth looking up, I think.
Latin
percussion is what I started out playing before I picked up a guitar.
Oh, nice.
I made a note of that just in case if I could find it on Spotify, we'll do it.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll send you a link.
Sounds good. For me, my first one, it goes to some of your Brooklyn brethren, Typo Negative, and the song Black Number One, because that song was, a huge kick in the pants for that style of music, that goth style, goth metal, whatever you want to call it, with a tongue-in-cheek humor. And basically the song is about a goth girl that won't go out because her roots were showing, so she had to dye them black. And Black Number One is the type of dye that
of course
goth people use for their hair. So Black Number One. But it's got spooky music, and it's got howling wolves, and it's got a little bit of an homage to the Addams Family theme in there too. And plus it's a great song. Peter Steele is an amazing writer and composer, and he is very, very missed.
All right, I'm going to go low-hanging fruit, Psycho Killer, Talking Heads.
Nice.
Got this. Alex, your turn.
Screamin' Jay Hawkins.
Ooh.
I Put a Spell on You.
Yes.
Now, he's like the original shock rocker. I saw him in a film called American Hot Wax, and it featured all these classic early rockers playing themselves. Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry. That was a huge inspiration to play guitar, too, because I think I was 10 when I saw this. And between discovering Chuck Berry and this film and Kiss, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But Screamin' Jay, he did his whole shtick like with a coffin and a cape. But if you just listen to the song, it's kind of terrifying. It's really scary, and he screams. I mean, it's a real forefather of shock rock, and I would argue heavy metal.
All right, I love this. All right, Gabe, what's next?
Josh Ritter's song "The Curse," which is about a guy who wakes up and immediately falls in love with a woman he sees at first sight, and as the song goes on, you realize he's a mummy. And it's pretty rad, and it just seems so appropriate for it's a great song. It's like a love ballad, but he's totally a mummy, and it's fantastic.
Great.
And there's a stop motion animation video that's great too.
All right, Mike.
I can't. I thought about this, Jay, after we had our meeting today, and I can't have a spooky playlist without my friends in Slayer being on it at some point.
Oh, yeah. But what song?
Raining Blood.
Yeah, fair.
Between the Rain intro and that really spooky, single note riff and the, just the everything about it is scary and spooky and evil, and that whole Diabolus and Musica kind of vibe that you get from that, the whole devil scale thing that they always do. It's got to be on there in some way, shape, or form. So Yes, that is my next one. It's first time and probably only time Slayer will be on a Taylor playlist. But
For sure.
Don't tell
it
Carrie.
fits. I don't think he would care knowing him.
That's
Actually, may be
hilarious.
offended that it's on there. What are you doing? I don't play acoustic. Like,
I told you I saw Carrie King in a Bed Bath & Beyond once. No, it was a Bed Bath & Beyond in like Providence, Rhode Island.
There's a
He's
whole
allowed to
movie
shop.
in that prompt.
I could see that.
Yeah. I'm going to go with another low-hanging fruit, Halloween by the Misfits.
Oh, there you
Yep.
go.
There you go. All right, Alex, next.
Is it okay to pick a classical piece?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Okay. Bela Bartok, Concerto for Strings, Percussion, and Celesta.
Great.
And it's pretty rocking for classical music. It's hard driving tune. It was actually in a horror film. It's in The Shining. So you've heard it, whether you know it or not. But it is scary and very evil sounding, but brilliant.
Love it. Gabe.
I got you, Daria. Halloween by Dave Matthews Band.
why?
I was waiting for it.
Why?
I was holding on to it.
Why? You didn't mention that you were listening to him. We totally anticipated that. We had it on the run of show that you were going to mention. That's what you're listening to this week.
I kind of haven't been, to be honest, but it's funny. I always find some way to, because you guys like to tease me about it mercilessly, so I always like to find some way to throw it in to things I've been listening to. But yeah, no, I really kind of haven't been, but that just belongs on the playlist, I think.
I put it on.
Wasn't it on like a? It was on like a horror movie soundtrack too, like a Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer. It was on one of those. It was on one of those soundtracks.
I love it.
My next one isn't necessarily spooky, but the way that the song is sung sends shivers up my spine, and that's Freak Like Me by Hailstorm.
Oh, yeah. I know that.
Lizzie Hale.
Yeah, love them.
Belts like no other on that song. She sings.
Yeah, she's something else.
Like she was, talk about somebody who's versatile. She went from doing Hailstorm to just like jumping into Skid Row and doing some dates with them at the end of their last tour.
Totally pulling it off, too.
Nailed it. So big ups to Lizzie Hale and Hailstorm. So Freak Like Me by Hailstorm.
Freak Like Me by Hailstorm. I'm going to go Heads Will Roll by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Why not? Heads Will Roll. It seems like a horror film clip. All right. Why not? I had to. My turn. Alex, you got this. You're up next.
Okay. A lot of people point to the first Black Sabbath title track. But I'm actually not going to pick that one. A less obvious one is Hand of Doom. Right?
Yes.
I think it's spooky. I think it sounds spooky.
It is.
And it gets really spooky, especially towards the end. I would point towards the last verse. Now you know the scene. Your skin starts turning green. Your eyes no longer seeing. Head starts spinning round. You fall down to the ground. And it's not supposed to be like a horror movie. It's actually about addiction but still the lyrics are so intense. It has the feel of a horror imagery.
That whole song is cinematic with the fact that it starts off, very quiet and then gets big and then quiet again and then big and then quiet again and then the whole big bridge and solo section and then quiet again and then it's very takes you on a journey the whole way through.
That's a good point. The dynamic is also so unexpected for Black Sabbath. It stays quiet.
Yeah.
Yes, it gets loud, but then it gets quiet again, and I think it checks all the boxes.
It does. Agreed. It's on the list.
All right, it's on the list. Gabe.
This will actually make the list worse, but I have to because it's such.
Is it another
low,
Dave Matthews song? I don't think he has any other spooky songs.
It's such easy, low hanging fruit that I just thought of it in my head and it was like, I kind of have to though. The Ghostbusters theme song.
Oh yeah. Come on,
that's fine. Yeah.
It's classic. I'm an '80s kid. Like, man. I was trying to be like esoteric and like actually thoughtful, and it popped into my head, and I was like, "Oh crap! I don't know."
Yeah, it's fun.
Not do it.
And he's a very good musician. He's actually on a couple of those funky Herbie Hancock post Headhunters records. So he's a great artist. But yeah, I'm sure somebody will give you a hard time for that just because it's
somebody's going to, for sure. Which that's fine.
I mean, somebody is going to give us a hard time no matter what.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
Yeah. You can't satisfy all the people all the time.
Yeah.
I mentioned Donovan earlier, and I can't do this list without doing Season of the Witch.
Oh, yeah.
By Donovan. And that's not, I mean, it's, the song is like an exercise in anxiety and like, wondering who's behind you, like who's looking over at me. Like this is this is odd, all within this sort of like kind of casual stroll through the yard sort of groove to it, which is what Donovan was so good at, still is so good at for that matter. But yeah, that one's on there, and plus it has the word witch in the title and the song, so it's a spooky song with a spooky title from a guy who's not necessarily thought of being spooky, but it's a great tune.
Twilight Zone by the Ventures, right? Twilight Zone's kind of eerie, no? That gotta be on there. Okay. Twilight Zone.
I'm doing it. It's on the list.
It's on the list. All right, Alex, your turn. We'll let Alex ride this out.
Yeah.
Let's have him
give us a few in a row here and take us home.
All right. We're gonna go back to classical. Stravinsky, The Rite of Spring.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's very tempting to pick the theme from Jaws by John Williams, but he really got it from The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. So let's just go right to the source. And he was also a big influence on Frank Zappa. And supposedly there was a riot when he premiered this. So in a lot of ways, Stravinsky is very metal.
I have a question. What about Hall the Mountain King?
Oh, that's like one of the creepiest pieces of music ever.
That's
classical train.
Prokofiev.
Yeah.
Not the Sabotage version.
No, not the Sabotage version. No.
I assume you mean the Prokofiev version.
Yes. Yeah, that's spooky stuff, and most anything by Grieg, for that matter, seems to kind of fit in that. And there's a lot of really spooky stuff in classical, like Modest Mussorgsky, like a lot of stuff. Night on Bald Mountain, that's a spooky song. And
Absolutely.
if you ever seen Fantasia, Disney's Fantasia, well, that's plays front and center in that one. So,
absolutely.
Sorry, I'm going all over. You probably had half of those written down.
There's a song this is an odd one. It's a very funny one because it's the song is 10 seconds long, but I would argue it's the scariest 10 seconds you're going to hear, and it's by John Zorn and his project Naked City, and it's called Hammerhead. Let me just see if I can dig it up here.
That's unsettling.
Can you tab that out for me so I can learn it? Is that
and amazingly, he's got these very virtuoso, sensitive players in the band. Bill Frisell is on guitar. I think Joey Garen's on drums. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Now the whole record isn't like that, but you should actually hear the album, and then when that comes on, it just kind of hits you over the head.
for those that don't know, John Zorn is extremely revered in the avant-garde music community, I guess, for lack of a better term, if we want to distill it down. Did you ever have opportunity to play with him?
I haven't. I do work with Kenny Grahowski, who's his drummer, one of his main drummers, and I've actually, I've played with several of his drummers. Scott Amendola on the West Coast. Dave Lombardo has even been on a couple projects because Zorn likes Slayer as well.
Yep.
But no, I would love to. I'm awaiting that call. So I will. That's great.
John, if you're watching, you heard it here first.
But I actually several of his other musicians I've worked with. So I'd like to think it's a matter of time. So we shall see.
One day it will happen. 2025.
I'm willing it.
Do you have any more, Alex?
I have. Yeah, I just mentioned Bill Frisell. There's one song of his, variations on a theme, Tales from the Far Side, that I think is super creepy and scary. And it's on an album called Ghost Town, which is very fitting. The rest of the album doesn't have that mood, but that song in particular, I think it would fit on the playlist.
It is on the list.
All right. So now we have avant-garde, we have jazz guitar, we have early rock and roll, we have Ozzy and Black Sabbath. I mean, I think that's a pretty well varied contribution, if I may say so.
That is, it is well rounded.
This is a good one though. Someone put this up here real quick. Night of the Witch by a band called Testament.
There you go.
I've heard of them.
Oh yes. I'm not going to toot my own band, but so it certainly is fitting.
Awesome.
I certainly approve of it being on the list.
You mentioned Bill Frisell, and I thought Lefty Frizzell is a country artist. We don't have country on the list, and he did a song called "The Long Black Veil," which is about killing somebody and being haunted by.
All right, that's
ghost.
creepy.
Sorry, I'm late on these comments, but there's some good ones. I see Daria says Stravinsky is fire. Yeah. There's also the Firebird Suite. That's another good Stravinsky song. And Bill Hound Show is Alex working with Jane Getter? Yeah, I'm on a couple records with the artist Jane Getter.
Awesome.
And we do live shows together. I'm not on her current tour because I've been on the Testament tour, but officially, yes.
This is fantastic. Well, I think it's time. Let's wrap the show up. It's been awesome. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm sorry we didn't talk more about Taylor guitars. I have my trusty guitars.
We always talk about Taylor guitars. It's a Taylor Guitars live talk show, Guitar Nerd talk show. So
I think we talk about everything but Taylor guitars.
It's okay. We thoroughly enjoy not talking about Taylor from time to time.
Yeah.
Don't worry. The next
talk
episode,
about someone else. Yeah.
The next episode, there's a lot of Taylor in it. Don't worry, everybody.
And you're a Taylor artist, and we're getting to know you. That's Taylor enough.
We're a Taylor artist, and we're getting to know you better, and it's been remarkable. Thanks for everybody who comes here every other week with us and hangs out. I know it's late on the East Coast. Alex is on the East Coast. It's late. Thanks for staying up with us and doing this thing. Mike, I'm grateful that you have this connection that it was as easy enough to say, Alex, do you want to do this? And he said yes. So thank you for that.
He made it happen.
I had a thrill. This is a thrill of a lifetime for me. I never take any of this for granted, especially when you get to meet somebody who you've looked up to in this world, in the music world, for so long. So Alex, for me, I appreciate you taking your evening and hanging out with us and answering questions, and I really appreciate it. Everybody, go listen to all of Alex's projects. We will list that in the comments below as well.
And Alex, what's the name of your podcast that you get to not as much as you like? Moods and Modes.
Yes.
There you go. And where could that be found?
That can be found anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple Music, Spotify, and or you can go to alexskolnick.net, and there's a direct link to it on the internet.
Awesome sauce.
Yeah, and I'll just add that the next Testament album and trio album will have Taylor guitars on them, and the last Alex Skolnick trio album has this guitar on it as well.
See, that's why we love you, because you help us.
We help each other.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
And I write a lot on these things. Yeah. I should release all the just raw sketches that I have on this one day.
That actually would be a good.
That would be great. Yeah.
Do you have a Patreon? That'd be a good Patreon.
I do. Yes, I do.
What if one day there was something better than Patreon?
Well, just like a record of Alex's raw sketches would be kind of cool too. Like
we'll see.
The Skolnick box set.
The Skolnick box set of rough sketches. I love this idea.
Rough sketches is a good album name too. I'm just throwing
that is, yes. Or a band.
More band. Hey, so top of the 8th, 6 Yankees, 4 Dodgers, and yes, I know the Lions are great right now, and I'm going to revel in it. So I appreciate everybody for throwing some Lion shade at me. I love it. Somebody said something over here.
And I'm not a sports guy, but I'm happy to hear that.
Dan said, good luck on Thanksgiving. I know. We know Thanksgiving's not a great day for us most of the time. But hey,
I'm glad people here in New York will be in a better mood tomorrow.
Oh, he's a Bears fan.
Well, we have to wait another inning and a half, Alex. We got to wait another inning and a half. The game is not over yet. I trust nothing. Till it's over. Exactly, as Yogi Berra once said. Which the funny thing is, he said it when he was coaching the Mets. So go figure.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Mom, I'll talk to you later. Gabe, great to see you as always.
Bye, Jay's mom.
Mike, it's great to see you. Bye, Jay's mom. Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
Alex.
It's been a pleasure, man.
All right, you guys.
So
right. I'm going to sign off. We'll see you next time, everybody.
That's good. Talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. All right.